Wealthy people are confronted in an economic crisis with two choices. You either have to part with some of your wealth to get us through this crisis, or, alternative, you don't get taxed. You lend it to the government, which uses the money to bail out the crisis, and then pays it all back to you with interest. Which one would you choose if you were wealthy? Well, guess what the government did? It did the one they chose, the one they preferred. That might be all right, but now what do? The government has to pay the interest. The government has to reduce the debt so the interest charges aren't so high. So everywhere governments are turning to the mass of people and saying, gee, we have this crisis and the government's budget is all out of whack. And the people that lent to us are very anxious, and they're saying they're not going to lend any more to us because we're too indebted. We're like a person's borrowed too much. And so we can't afford, we have to lower what our debt is. And so, dear citizen, we're either going to have to tax you more to raise the money to pay off the debt, or we're going to have to cut back the services so the money we used to spend, I don't know, let's say for, Medicaid or state colleges, is reduced, and that money can now be used to pay down the debt. This kind of a program around the world, even in America, is called austerity. See, you do have a good sense of humor. Austerity is a wonderful word because it sort of implies that we're all in this together and we all have to push and pull through the hard times that will allow us to get out of it. So I hope I don't offend anyone, but not being from this state, I can afford this. I listened in stunned disbelief to your new governor the other day, explaining to all of you how you're going to have 5 more years of those emergency taxes that you passed in 2009, and that's about 12 billion, if I understood his numbers, and another 12 billion will come from cutting. And what were the 2 big areas to cut? For the poor people, massive reduction of Medicaid. And for the middle, massive cuts in the budgets of the community colleges, state colleges, and the university system. You're all going to get to live in a society which a week ago we discovered clearly doesn't need mass mental health services, for example. Who needs that at a time of high unemployment? That would be silly, and no one needs that. So we're going to cut what we provide for the mass of the most stressed people, and then we're going to wonder when we read about unspeakable acts in our society. Strange. Austerity. What a wonderful term. But in case you think this all flies without any kind of problem, let me again point out, there are other countries who did exactly what the United States did. And they too have been trying to put austerity on their people. Austerity is a way of getting the mass of people to pay the cost of dealing with this crisis. That's all it is. It shifts the burden from those who brought you the crisis to the rest of you, so that not only do you suffer unemployment and foreclosed homes, you now get to pay the cost of the government borrowing to save the financial sector in the hopes that something would trickle down. What's trickling down on you is an unspeakable substance I will not give a name to. In Europe, there is a fight against austerity that might give you some hope. In Greece, in France, in Spain, in Italy, in Portugal, in Ireland, and in Britain, there have been massive actions of people against austerity. That is the central political issue. In France, Italy, Portugal, Spain, I hope I'm not leaving anyone out, there have been general strikes. In Italy, 4. In Greece, 7. General strike is when everything stops. The one in France, which I was connected to a little bit, was remarkable. The phone didn't work. You turned on the electricity, but it didn't go on. Everything stopped. The working class was saying to the government, and that was their slogan, you brought this crisis, we will not pay for it. But we're not in Europe. We're here. And we haven't had anything like that. We had something here in the schools, the public higher education here in California, that gave hope to many people around the country, but that's really all. So I want to say that there is a way to fight against this. The Europeans, very clear. Tax the rich, tax the corporations. Solution. Stop. That could be a solution in this country also. Even your sister state, for those of you who do not know it, in Oregon, was remarkable in what it did. In 2009, the legislature passed a bill there saying we're not going to make the cuts that California, our sister state, have made. We're not making any cuts in public services. We're going to solve the problem with millions of dollars of debt in the state by taxing the rich and taxing corporations. That's what they did. Everybody earning over $250,000 had to pay much more in Oregon, and those earning over $500,000 had to pay still more. They passed the bill, and corporations had to pay. Nobody could believe it. Then not only did the legislature pass it, but the governor signed it. At which point the business community and the Republicans went crazy and utilized the right of recall, that strange rule that Western states have, to force a referendum, which was scheduled for January a year ago, 2010. And the two sides squared off. And in the middle of January, 1.2 million Oregonian citizens went to the polls and soundly supported the law. The business community was defeated. And Oregon didn't go the way others did. I mention it only because even in our country, where we do not have the organizations that make these events in Europe, Europe has still powerful trade unions, strong socialist, communist, green parties, and so on, that have organizations that can pull people out to make a statement about national policy. We don't have that anymore. We're going to have to create that. Otherwise, we will not be able to even mount the opposition that in Europe is making a very big difference. There's more political action in Europe of a progressive sort than there has been for decades. Not only that, for the first time, on the 29th of September, they had an all-Europe action in which in every country, even little countries that don't normally participated. Some of you might like to know that on the 29th of September, when there were actions against austerity in every European country, a trade union organization in Poland joined, called Solidarity. From one role it played 20 years ago to a very different role it has to play now. If Solidarity could come all that distance, then there must be hope even for us in the United States.